Hey everyone, Rachel Weaver here. I'm on faculty at Regis University's Mile High MFA program. I'm making a series of videos in which I am exploring lots of different avenues that we can all head down to make a living as a person who has a background in writing. So today, Michelle Castillo is with us. Thanks for being here, Michelle.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
Michelle graduated with her MFA a few years ago, and she went on to earn a certificate in book coaching. And so she is going to tell us all about that. Can you just start, Michelle, by just sort of explaining the certification that you earned and what that looks like and how it's gone since then?
Yeah, of course. So the certification that I did at the time, and I think it still is, the only official certification in book coaching is through Author Accelerator. Jenny Nash is the founder of that program. She's written several books, has been book coaching for about 20 years. And she worked in depth originally, although, and they're still connected, but they've kind of separated a little bit. She worked really closely with Lisa Cron, who did Wired for Story and all of those awesome Story Genius, all those amazing books. So they actually created some programs together early on, like programs to teach Story Genius method and those kinds of things. So that's just a little bit about Jenny and the program and like kind of where it started. So Author Accelerator now doesn't really work with writers. They specifically focus on training book coaches. So they do offer they'll match writers who inquire with existing certified book coaches, but they don't, the company itself doesn't employ book coaches anymore, which is something that they used to do. So the certification is basically, you can certify in fiction, in nonfiction, or you can do both. At the time I did it, fiction was the only option. So I have the fiction certification. There is a publication arm as well that talks about, once you've written the book, here is like the next phase, and they have that for fiction and then nonfiction separately, because those two processes are very different. So that I think is a really cool element of the certification, regardless of which one you do. You go through a ton. I couldn't even tell you. I should have looked at this. It's been so long since I've gone through the material. There's like 10 modules in the program that talk about everything from like the Author Accelerator methods for like developing a story, for how to edit effectively, but then also things like how to coach, like how to be a coach, which is, a different thing than being an editor. Is different than being sort of like the coaching perspective is all about empowering the person you are coaching to come to their own conclusions, and to kind of, you're like bringing out what's inside of them instead of telling them what to do, basically. That's like the perspective that a coach takes. So they dive deep into that. They dive really deep into some of the mindset stuff and how to work with a writer who's going through the struggles of, as everybody who's written understands, there's a ton of things that come up for you as you're writing, and the book coach is there to support through that. And so some of the modules talk about helping like your mindset as a coach, but then also helping the mindset for the writer. So just a ton of content in the course itself. And then the actual certification hinges on 3 practicums where you're actually working with practice clients, and you're actually taking them through the process. You're sending your materials, you're sending, you do a recorded call with them with the writer at certain periods throughout the process. You're sending the recordings, you're sending your written materials, you're sending all of that to the Author Accelerator team. They are going through that. They're giving you feedback. They're telling you, these are some areas you need to work on. They might have you go back and redo those areas before they approve your certification. So some people go right through and pass everything right away. Some people need to go back and maybe redo, maybe their feedback letter didn't capture enough, or whatever. could be. But so it's a really robust program. I've actually done several certifications and other things just because I'm a nerd. And a lot of them are like very fluffy, and it's like all you have to do is like go through all the course materials and you get certified. This was very different in that there were very big milestones that you had to hit in order to pass. And there's a lot of integrity in the certification.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can do this work without the certification, but I think it's a much quicker and more streamlined process to do the certification, get that confidence that you know how to show up, but it also like putting that on your website or on your material, or whether you have a website or not, but like saying that you're a certified book coach definitely holds some weight in the marketplace, because there's a lot of people out there who don't really know what they're talking about and have a lot of opinions. And so being able to say that you're certified by a professional organization definitely helps just kind of get you that one step higher. People have trust in that in Author Accelerator, so they have trust in you.
And then what happens from there? I mean, is it, and maybe this is a hard question, but I wonder about, any sort of freelancing like this, like what you're talking about, takes a while to build, right?
Totally.
So what happens after that? Have you found ways to start to build your practice, to pull in clients, to find clients?
So they actually, Author Accelerator has several different layers. They have a business, like a business of book coaching course, like just like a self-paced online course that just has some materials in it. They also have a mastermind, which is a little bit higher end. You pay a little bit more, but you work directly with Jenny Nash and her team to build your business. So to build your book coaching business. Now, I didn't take advantage of those opportunities because I have a pretty robust background in business, and I didn't feel that was something I needed. And I wouldn't say that for me personally, that I don't look back and say, wow, I wish I had done that, because it's just not, it would not have been the right investment for me. But I know several people who I went through the program, around the same time, and they've taken advantage of those opportunities, and it's been really helpful. So it's nice that because they're continuing, Author Accelerator is continuing to support the book coaches even after you're certified. So they help you through that process. So if you don't know anything about how to start a business, there's a resource. There's a great community. It's off of Facebook, which is nice because I don't really love Facebook, but it's off of Facebook on a Mighty Networks. It's a private community, and it's very active. And there's a certified book coaches element of that. That's only for people who are already certified. And in that, there's conversations all the time. There's people asking questions. Hey, what resource do you use for this? How did you do that? I have this idea. Hey, I'm doing this workshop. I have actually kind of put the brakes a little bit on my book coaching because I had another business opportunity that came up that I'm really focused on right now. And when I get inquiries on my website for book coaching services, I go into that group and I say like, hey, I've got somebody who's writing a fantasy, a middle grade fantasy who reached out, anybody interested in taking that? And I'll get like 5 people will put their hand up, right? And so then I can pass that contact information. It's just this really great network of like-minded people, mostly women. I will say mostly women, but not all. I think it just appeals, the whole concept of book coaching, I think appeals to women maybe in a different way, but there are a few men, but I would say that it's like maybe like 75% women. So, but this is this great network. So I was going to say this great network of women, but there's men in there too. There's this great network. They're super supportive. And most of them are kind of at a similar place. Like there's a few people, because this is a newer field, there are some people who have like really skyrocketed and like are really killing it with this. And then there's other people who are still just like feeling their way, and all those little wins and successes and pain points. And like, how do you talk to a client? Like, hey, this came up with a client. What do I do? And people jump in and help give you suggestions and help guide. It's really powerful. It's really powerful. So if the fear of starting a business or freelancing or doing any of that is holding you back, know that everybody else is dealing with that same fear.
Yeah.
And you just have to, I mean, just putting yourself out there and leaning on the resources that you have is a big part of that. Very few people in the program have an MFA. I'll say that. There were a small handful of other, when I was going through it, a small handful of other MFA graduates. Some people are published authors, some people are not. A lot of people are not. Jenny is a big proponent of the fact that like you don't have to be a published writer to be a great book coach.
Mhm.
And she's putting a lot of effort into her big push is to educate the marketplace about what book coaching is. Why do you need it? How do you qualify somebody as a good book coach? You know, like, how do you know that somebody is a good book coach? And then also the value, that it's something valuable to pay for before you spend 10 years spinning your wheels trying to write a novel. Like, this is something of value. And again, on this, she speaks a lot on this concept of like, that you don't have to be, being a published author doesn't mean anything. Like, you might not be a good teacher, and you could be a good teacher and a good coach and understand story and not be a published author. So I think that's a big point to keep in mind, because I'm not a published author.
Mhm.
And I had a little bit of imposter syndrome around that. Like, can I actually do this in integrity without having been published? But the point is like, I'm awesome at reading a story and seeing what it needs, like what needs to, where the weak spots are, where things need to, you know, so.
So I guess my last question would be, what advice do you have for someone who is recently graduated and would like to sort of get started? What advice do you have?
With book coaching specifically, or just like out in the world?
Either one.
Well, I guess we were just kind of talking about this offline when we first got on here, but it's just staying positive and being optimistic about the possibilities. So don't get stuck in that limited mindset of like, there's nothing I can do with this degree, and this MFA is, you know, like, what am I going to do? I can't teach. I can't, you know, I'm not going to teach at a university level. Like, there are so many other things that you can do. And like, as a book coach, you can host online workshops. You can host in-person workshops. You could host retreats. You can work with people at you get to decide, like, what level do you want to work with? Newbie writers just starting out who have an idea for a book but have never written anything? Do you want to work with people who have a first draft done and you want to help them on like the revisions? You could be a book coach who specializes just in that. Mm-hmm. And never have to talk to somebody who's never written, you know, who doesn't have a draft. You can focus on just the like publication part. Like, I want to help you through the publication process. So it's like, stay open to the idea of like there being so many possibilities, so many different options, so many different things you can explore. And you just have to be creative, like turn that creative energy that you use when you are writing to the idea of like, there's all these possibilities. Don't shut yourself off. Don't assume that there are no good options. It sounds like my house.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It sounds like my house. Especially when like the UPS guy drives up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So that's all I would say is just like, stay open to it. The other great thing about book coaching, I would say, is that I actually learned a lot about my own process.
Right.
And continue to learn a lot about my own process by helping people through theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, not knocking the MFA, but I would say that I'm like, that was a solid foundation, but I've learned so much more by being out in the real world and like putting it into practice and working with people at all different stages of their kind of writing process. It's really helped me a lot with both writing, revision, thinking about a novel, like from day one. Like, it just has given me a lot of frameworks for that. So I would say it does not mean that you're never going to write your own work again, right? It doesn't, like, doing this doesn't mean you're giving up that dream. It just means that you're giving yourself a way to stay in the creative writing space and make some money, which, you know, is nice. We all
Thank
like
you.
that.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it, Michelle.
Of course. Thanks so much, Rachel. And everybody, best of luck to all of you.